Hello, and thank you very much, Bevan. Hello to all of you out there in the virtual world. As Bevan said, we are the fourth and final panel today, made up of all women. And so hopefully this will be a very helpful and insightful and useful conversation to all of you. I'm very much looking forward to it. And so we are focusing on how digital learning has been used to generate real world impact and to really bring to life some case studies from four organizations, very different organizations from around the world. We're going to be exploring how this current context has impacted their learning strategy and the outcomes that they are seeking to achieve. And we'll look at two particular aspects in particular. And this question of, when you were talking about virtual and blended, what are the specific challenges and opportunities? And based on that, what are the criteria that organizations use to find the right partner if they do need to go externally to support their online training efforts? So before we start, I just want to ask you guys to engage. And so could you share via Slido or via the question function, what are your specific current challenges when it comes to digital learning? And we will weave that into the conversation as we go. Obviously, we don't have a lot of time, so we're going to dive right in. And so it's my pleasure to introduce these four incredible ladies. We have Sonia from Learning and Development at Melia, sorry if I've said that wrong.
That's correct.
Hotel. And she has more than 12 years of experience in the hospitality industry. During the COVID lockdown in particular, they have launched a new global online learning program called Stay Safe with Melia. And I'd like Sonia to just talk a little bit about that and what they've experienced over the last 6 to 9 months.
Thank you, Lisanne, for the introduction. Hello, everybody, virtually, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today and to have this conversation with such a great panel of ladies. So to be honest, as you mentioned, Lisanne, we have been working at Melia Hotels and we have been investing in digital learning for the last 4 years. And we changed to a new platform at this year, LMS, because we want to focus more on social learning, collaborative, and more continuous on-the-job learning. No? So this was our goal. However, our plans shifted, or I should say accelerated, due to the COVID pandemic, and we had to concentrate our efforts to transform all the programs that were blended or face-to-face to digital, adapt as well to the needs of our employees. And for this reason, the program you mentioned, Stay Safe with Melia, was launched. It is a program that focused on the reopening of our hotels because we had to close the hotels during the lockdown. And our idea was to train all our employees worldwide in all the regions from Asia to America to Europe or Spain in all the new protocols that were implemented. It can be either in the reception, the new check-in process, new buffet setups, and to make sure that they felt safe. First of all, they knew the new health and safety regulations, and as well they made our guests feel safe, and come in this new way of experiencing tourism as well. And in addition, we wanted to focus as well on their emotional well-being, on working on change management, resilience, this concept that we've heard a lot these days. And we created very quickly this program. This was a huge challenge because we had a very limited time to prepare, and we had to train more than 23,000 employees worldwide at the same time. And employees who did not have experience in learning and sometimes are not very practical with digital tools. So it was quite a huge challenge for us during this last few months.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. So just moving on quickly to our other panelists. Stacy. Stacy Burns is a talent development leader at EY. Stacy, tell us a bit about what you've experienced and if anything resonates in terms of what you you heard Sonia discussing.
Thank you, Lizanne. And like Sonia, I'm delighted to be here. And much of what Sonia said did resonate, even though we work in very different environments. So within professional services at EY, I specialise in leadership development. And I think it's fair to say that we were already thinking about developing future-focused leaders, purpose-driven leaders. So that was part of our strategic context pre-2020. And what has changed for us is really the pace and the acceleration. So Sonia talking about mobilising learning for thousands of staff. We have seen that in action in a myriad ways across EY, but also we're no longer talking about future skills. The future is now. So it's how do we bring the learning into a space where our future leaders and current leaders can experiment and apply in real time.
Okay. Thank you. So Anna Bauman is a program manager in leadership talent development at ABN AMRO. Anna, tell us a bit about the context of the bank, what you've been experiencing.
Yes, thank you, Lizanne, and thank you for being here. When we just started, actually December before the lockdown, we started a program for our executive group on leadership development and accelerating strategy. When the lockdown hit us, the first question actually was, should we continue this program or is it something we should discontinue for now? But the answer was no, it's even more important to be connected together and to stay on track with our strategy. So we continued the program and try to get it online. That's, I think, a bit of our context in relation to the COVID.
Okay, thank you. Mona. So we have Mona Baker. She's a program manager and the enterprise learning and human development department at KFAC.
Yes.
Please tell us a bit about your context and what's been happening over the past few months.
Sure. So for us, it's a little bit different because of what KFAS is the Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Science. And so what we kind of focus on is offering learning and development opportunities to the entire private sector here in Kuwait, which means that we develop, for banks and then hospitality industry. So everything that they've just said resonates, with me as well, because what we've had to do is quickly kind of alter the programs that were happening in person, have them kind of launch virtually. But at the same time, we worked on what we call the Emergency Resilience Program when COVID started. And what we wanted to do was promote online learning opportunities for different companies in Kuwait. So we started kind of offering grants on some of the online platforms so that they can continuously engage their employees, kind of like the LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, etc., so that they can kind of continue learning during.
Okay. So given all of this change, and the word that I keep hearing over and over again is acceleration. So there were processes and programs that you already had in place. And so there's this question of acceleration. What challenges and opportunities rather has this acceleration really brought to your context of digital learning? Why don't we start with you, Stacy?
Thanks, Lizanne. So I think that the main challenge really initially was having to mobilize really, really rapidly in a space that we had played in before. So we had some blended learning offerings, and it was certainly in the strategy, but we were probably thinking we had, maybe 3, maybe 5 years to become kind of fully blended. And then it had to happen in a very short space of time. But I think if we take that out of it, the main challenges that we've experienced are around winning the hearts and minds of the individuals in our organisation who simply believe that learning should happen in the classroom. So how do you engage with those individuals and make it a value-add experience? And then also, how do you differentiate the learning experience sufficiently from the day job when we are all spending our lives on Zoom or Teams or whatever that may be? How do you make learning feel memorable and iconic if you're using a similar platform?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what's, oh, sorry, go on.
No, go on.
No, I was going to ask if you could give us an example of something specific you did, especially around this idea of winning hearts and minds, because we know that engagement, that motivation to learn is so critical to the impact.
It's a great question. And I think the thing that really stands out for me, I currently lead a program of differential investment called EY Edge, and it's for our high potential manager population. And it's a program that has great kudos. It's got great credibility and a really strong brand within our organization. But we've always delivered it primarily in face-to-face large scale events, and it's highly experiential. So to Anna's point earlier, in one of the things that happened way back in March, April was, do we continue this? Do we take the leap and look at virtualization, or do we press pause? And I think where we landed was the need for learning, the need for development has never been greater. And actually, if we're teaching these individuals the skills to navigate uncertainty, we need to practice what we preach. But needless to say, these individuals were used to having that face-to-face experiential cohort environment to learn in. And so we needed to think about how we replicated that. Could we replicate that in a virtual environment? And I think what struck us and the way that we won hearts and minds was, one, to be really open and honest and say, as learning professionals, as program leads, we're learning as we go, we're experimenting, come on the journey with us, and crucially tell us what works and what doesn't. And the other thing was, let's be really aspirational about this. So one of the things that we've found is a real opportunity right now is you can achieve things you didn't think would be possible in a physical environment. Because if you take out the need for people to travel, if you take out the sort of geographical barriers, you can bring in some really exciting experiences and speakers. And the one that stands out for me was in September, we had a Maasai elder from his village in Kenya dial into our MS Teams EY Edge call and talk to our managers about how the nomadic wisdom from his culture had applicability here and now in our context for leaders today. So that's what stands out for me.
That is incredible. I've spent time in Kenya and stayed with a Maasai family, so that's a really interesting idea, how you bring in something that probably would not have happened in a normal setting. Anna, tell us a little bit about the acceleration and how it's impacted your context when it comes to challenges and opportunities in digital learning.
Well, I recognize the topics that were mentioned before, and I was thinking at the same time. So one of the challenges was that learning suddenly becomes one of your agenda points in a day-to-day full-packed schedule, and that's for colleagues, participants, hard sometimes. But on the other hand, it's also an opportunity to bring learning directly into your day-to-day job, right? So transfer of learning is always a challenge because you get people out of their normal environment, which is most of the time a good thing because it gives you focus. On the other hand, they always go back to their jobs day after, and then how do you apply what you've learned there? So in one way, it's a challenge, but in there is also, I think, an opportunity to bring learning closer to your job. I recognize one of the opportunities also to it's easier to include the international community. So before we were actually always struggling with the Dutch population and the international population, which is based in Asia and America. So there's always traveling is huge. Um, and yeah, at this point we can just involve all these people in the same program, and I think it's wonderful to have this different perspectives and to connect also with other parts of the world within the company. So yeah, I think that's also a great opportunity.
And have you found that your staff have really engaged with this process, and that they've, given you clear feedback on what's working, what's not working in that process?
Yeah, in a way, yes. So we actually did the same thing to, we are experimenting. We don't have the right answer. So jump on board with us and let's learn with each other together. I found that people or participants find it hard sometimes to not think about the physical session. So most of the time people appreciate the effort you put in all the online sessions, and they find it inspiring and useful, and they value really the connection with others. But every time and again, they say, well, if we could do it offline again, we would really appreciate that even more. So apparently it's not a substitute yet. But yeah, it feels like we're learning together, and it's a fast pace, definitely.
Okay. So Mona, given your specific context that you're really looking, you're supporting clients who then have their own clients. What are the specific challenges and opportunities in your context?
Sure. So just to kind of continue what my colleagues are saying, because there's similar kind of opportunities and challenges as well. So with the opportunities, it gives us the opportunity to kind of reach more people now that you're online. So we were able to have a lot more applicants to our programs. And then we've got more interest from the different learning and development departments because there's no longer this cost of travel. So it's programs have become a little bit more cost effective, more cost efficient. But we come from a world where we haven't ever done anything online prior. So everything was always online. In person. So that shift was really challenging. It's breaking that conception that online learning is boring, for example, or that you wouldn't be able to kind of get as much as you would in person. But I've seen that change has rapidly happened. Some of the challenges that we've faced in the where with with in-person programs, you were able to network. So for us, that was really important because we were able to bring in different companies across from the private sector. And so some of the challenges there is how do you get people to talk to each other in these online programs that we face, as well as just to kind of keeping them online was challenging.
Yeah. I can imagine. We've heard that people will have multiple windows open. They've got their phone right next to them. There could be distractions in the background, etc. What have the partners that you worked with? Have you gotten any feedback on ways to really up that engagement and to ensure the attention, right? That's the most valuable thing we have in the learning process. Yeah. Have you heard any feedback from the partners that you work with in terms of what really works, particularly given this worry that, it's so boring and I'm not sure I want to even be here?
So what we had to do was to redesign a lot of our programs. So if we were doing a short module, like a shorter program for 3 days, for example, what we decided to do is to kind of space it out over 2 weeks time with shorter modules, because we know that, the attention span is not as high. So they would run them, for example, 2-hour sessions. every other day, so that we keep people kind of still engaged, still wanting to partake in the learning, but not have them completely drained. And then this way we know that they can focus more for a shorter period of time than, it'd be like a general full day of learning.
Okay. Okay.
That's some of the
So,
feedback that we've gotten.
yeah. So back to you, Sonia. Thinking about Melia, how have you approached these opportunities and challenges? I mean, what are they in the first place, but how have you tried to address them?
In at Media, the situation was a little bit different, maybe, because we had two type of employees, the ones that from the corporate office that were working from home, and we had to challenge them to find the time to continue learning, during their work, and the ones who, unfortunately, many hotels closed and they were not working, so for those we had an advantage, because at the end we had the time, from their side, and they were willing to learn, they were willing to fill their time with learning, and we had an opportunity there as well, to show them what we can offer them in digital learning, and to be there for them in a more supporting way, and we created a lot of moments of interaction or conversations through the platform with them. For example, we created collaborative groups on different topics, on for example, virtual leadership, or how to work from home, with kids as well, which is a different story, or,
Yes.
emotional well-being. So we wanted really to be there with something that added value, with the topics they needed at this time. But we had two different challenges and opportunities based on the different groups of people. Some people were working from home, and some people were at home with more time to invest on digital learning. So this combination. But at the end, for us, it was the opportunity, because we had the channel, we had the platform. Maybe we, as Stacy said, we didn't have the time to prepare for all the opportunity potential that we could make made out of this platform. We expected to have more time, but we had to do it in a less period of time. But at the end, it was for us to show that e-learning can work if it really adds value to the employee, and if we are together with the company strategy, and if we move together with the company objectives. And this for us was very important at this moment.
That's a great point. I would like to go a little bit deeper in that, and any of you can jump in terms of responding to this. But given the context, and we remember that at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a lot of focus on the staff. Were they okay? And health and well-being, and how are people coping with this? And is everyone okay? And I think that there's been a thread about that throughout. And equally, there's this question of organizational strategy, and how has it been impacted by the pandemic context. And I'm wondering, how have your organizations managed that balance between needing to just make sure that people are okay and doing the work, versus this strategic focus and sort of where are we going as an organization? And where have you seen that there's more of a focus on one side or the other, or have you found a way to combine the two using this digital approach? Because it seems to me there was quite a this heavy swing towards, let's just make sure everyone's okay. Let's not even worry about what we were trying to achieve at this higher level. I'm just wondering if you've got any comments on that.
I think, Lizanne, from my perspective, I have seen that delicate balance, and I completely recognise in the UK and Irish firm at EY, we certainly had a focus first and foremost on our people in terms of well-being and mental health, and are people okay? And we've actually got an underlying strategy around meaningful connection. So not just connecting when you can't connect physically, but actually making that conversation meaningful, which underpins a lot of what we do, but also has links to our learning strategy. But I don't think we have seen a step change in the strategic pace, if anything, quite the reverse. And I think that's probably because we've been applying that same logic in conversations with our client base as well. And actually, that has created a better conversation and has enabled us to identify more opportunities to kind of further our strategic ambitions.
Okay. And so in terms of the digital focus, can you give us just a simple example of how did you use digital technology or digital learning, if that was applicable to that health and well-being space?
So there are a couple of things. So we've got a really well-established program called Healthy Wire, which has various strands. One of them is our Thrive strand, which was in existence pre-COVID. But actually in 2020, we've seen access to webinars, Let's Chat, drop-in clinics really spike in terms of supporting our internal staff around their wellbeing and health agendas. But we also have, and again, something that was pre-existing, EY Ripple's aspiration, which is our corporate social responsibility program, which is around impacting people's lives positively. We have real aspirations around that. And actually, we've seen the shift from sort of analog to digital really accelerate the pace and the opportunities. And it's a little bit like what Mona was saying, it allows you greater reach and greater scale.
Okay. Any other comments on that in terms of the balance between the focus on the individual and the organizational and strategic imperatives?
From our side, Lisanne, it's true that it was, as you mentioned, at the beginning, it was the focus on emotional well-being. And now, and I think it will be the same for 2021, it's the focus on the strategy, how and we need to think further, how is learning going to help the company in this new path, and how we can use these digital opportunities. But 2020 has been more focused on emotional well-being, resilience, and etc. Not to make sure everybody's okay. And now we need to start aligning those two sides, make sure everybody's okay, and what is the company new strategy and innovation on that side.
So, sorry, Mona?
No, I was just going to mirror what she said, that I agree. And then actually with our organization, we've decided we have a 5-year strategy cycle, and we've actually decided to prepone that and start working on the new strategy because of the impact of COVID, which has kind of taught us a lot of things. And then so now we're looking at, okay, how do we now address all, 2021 going forward?
Okay.
Revising and taking a look at that strategy.
Okay. So,
I think
Anna?
yeah, within ABN AMRO, people was a first reaction, but quite fast followed by there was already a strategy review going on for parts of the organization, and that ended up in a full strategy refresh. So to use the opportunity of COVID and also to give more focus to our current strategy, actually, which is focusing on sustainability. I think also a huge opportunity for ABN AMRO now. And there's also quite a lot of attention to the future of how we work. So in relation to well-being, but also in how do you see the workforce developing, and also the use of offices and etc. The way we work together, how is that going to change, and what does that mean for our leadership and our learning, etc., etc. So,
Okay. So we've had a question up. I just want to touch on this very quickly. Experiential and collaborative learning remains a challenge. the main challenge. Do you guys have any examples of how you've been addressing this? I mean, Stacy, I love the idea of, something that was maybe more experiential, or maybe something that really engaged the brain in a very different way, looking at a group of people in a completely different part of the world who have a very different cultural context, and what were the transferable lessons. Any other examples of really experiential or discovery type learning, as I like to call it, something that just really takes you to a different time and space almost, so that you really fire different parts of your brain and try to make and take meaning from a different context?
I think one good example in our program was a business simulation that was first a 3 full day program, but we translated that to 3 half days online. And I think the experience is actually online maybe the same value as the face-to-face version. So in a simulation, you can quite accomplish some experiential learning, I guess.
Okay. Any other examples?
So for us, it's going in back to choosing the right partner. I've seen, from pre-COVID to kind of correct, like now, a lot of partners have revamped their online delivery. So in the past, it was kind of a lot of reading, but now they've introduced a lot of gamifying, a lot of simulations, just to kind of keep that engagement and collaboration ongoing.
Okay. Any other examples before we move on?
From our side, we focus more on collaboration, no? On this program. What we wanted is to potentiate internal know-how, because we had a lot of experts within the company, and we created a program called Learning Influencers from our platform that could create the content, their own content within the platform. No? So we wanted to make sure that we not only have available videos, online learning, outside or external content from partners, but to have a lot of content from our own know-how from Meliano, from the different areas, and we try to potentiate that.
Okay. So, Mona, just coming to something that you just said about the partners and their role in helping you design the experience. Can each of you just give us a sense of what is it that you're looking for, given what you've learned in these last 6 to 9 months? Has your focus or the priorities that you have in partnering externally, have they changed? And what specifically are you looking for? Where is the value add in partnering with an organization to deliver your digital experiences for your people? Why don't we start with you, Mona?
Sure. So for us, one of the main drivers is flexibility. We needed to find a partner that was flexible. We are in Kuwait, so a lot of our partners are on the East Coast, West Coast. So we need to kind of take into consideration time zones. And then emphasis on kind of shorter, more dynamic programs are also kind of really critical. And then even the simple things, the logistics of kind of for us registrations and the ease of the process is also really important. Some of the things that we started to look for, just because we've had to move really fast, and we just want to make sure that the experience is seamless.
Okay.
For some of our participants.
Yeah. Anna.
Yeah, I would like to add because flexibility is, I think, for us also important, and maybe to add a bit to that is that we didn't change partners. We jumped on the same learning train. They jumped with us on the same learning train. So, but we discovered that online facilitation is really different than face-to-face facilitation. So we did change facilitators here and there because not all of them were evenly qualified or had enough affinity with the online facilitation. Yeah.
And what was, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper there. What were some of the things that you were finding was different and that, people just hadn't made that leap from, I'm in face to face and I do it this way. And now I'm online and hang on. What is it that I may need to do differently? What were you finding?
Well, I think if you facilitate online sessions, you need to be able to use the online supporting functions as chat, as polls, etc., to keep the interaction going and make sure that people stay with you instead of talking for like 20, 30 minutes. And being able to see, if you're in a room together, you can see from the faces if people are there or not, or if they're distracted or whatever. So you can ask questions because you notice that. But in an online session, that's impossible to see all of the people in the room. So you need to use different tools. And if you don't feel comfortable in doing that, or you really feel that you have to keep on talking for like 45 minutes, that's just not going to work in this environment. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Stacy, what are you looking for at EY in a partner?
So the flexibility piece that Mona talked about really resonates. I think that has skyrocketed up the list of priorities. And I think to Anna's point, we are definitely looking to our existing partners and also for new partners who can offer that sort of coach as facilitator experience, because we find that works really well in a virtual environment. But just to add to that, I think the need for deep functional expertise will never be deprioritized. We want every partner we work with to be knowledgeable and credible. But increasingly, we're looking for something a bit more entrepreneurial. So whether that's within our established relationships or seeking out new partners, we're really looking for people who bring fresh thinking and can challenge our assumptions so that we can deliver something that's really different and works in this environment.
Okay. And what business themes or topics are there particular aspects of leadership development where that just becomes even more critical? I mean, how does that come to life for you in terms of that entrepreneurship and the learning and how it's applied in digital? If you could give an example.
Yeah, so our leadership model is really underpinned by this notion of being transformative. So what we're asking people to do is develop expertise and skills around operating in an agile way. So the approach rather than the methodology, although both come into play, and to exhibit that curiosity and kind of art of inquiry. So, and we're asking people to do that in a context where all the parts are moving and you can't really predict the outcomes for you or for your clients. So what we really look for in a design partner when we're designing learning is bringing in provocative questions or different perspectives, or holding up a totally different industry or experience to encourage our future leaders to ask those great questions, to be curious, to be able to go with the flow and pivot if they need to.
Okay. Thank you. So Sonia, what are you guys looking for at Malia?
I think you all have said the main key elements. No, flexibility is key. For us, it's the top of our list in terms of deadlines and flexibility of facilitators as well. And as Mona said, international experience as well is key for us, adapting to different management style, different cultures, and even time zones. And another thing that for us is important as well is best practices. At the end, we want a partner who has experience from other sectors or with other clients, and it can challenge us, and it can be a program that we build together. And this is very important to have this outside vision of best practices from others, and of course user experience and a practical approach to virtual learning. We want to have something different and that has not been offered before, no, as well. And one thing we haven't said, but it's very important as well, is the technical guarantee. That everything technical part for us is key, because always happens, no? And at the end, we are experts in learning and development, but not so much in the technical aspects, no? And we want to look that for in a partner as well.
So let me ask you, we've got about 5 minutes left, but in terms of the criteria that you're using, how do you assess the impact? How do you know that the partner is actually delivering what you're looking for? I mean, what do you have specific measures that you apply across the board, or is it dependent on the program? What is your approach to the assessing the success of your relationship with an external partner? Any of you can respond to that.
Well, I think the feedback from our employees is the first thing. The feedback
Okay.
from the program, it's very, very important for us, and the satisfaction, and if they feel it has added value to their learning, no? So for us, this is key to make sure that it has been something useful for our employees, and then from our side as well, to make sure that we work with this flexibility that we need, no, in terms of rushing into these programs and projects, no?
Okay. Do you ever do anything that's at a more organizational level where, I mean, I know it's very hard to attribute causality, but do you ever look at wider metrics that might tell you whether or not the learning has been applied or taken back beyond what the participants themselves say? Do you have any specific metrics that you use?
Yes, especially for service culture, for example, when we do our service culture training, we measure as well the guest feedback. No, at the end, we need to see the result in our guests, no, and not only in our employees, but we measure as well our KPIs from guest satisfaction, and how we can link this to the training we have delivered. No? So this is as well very important.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that in terms of how you assess those relationships that you have externally?
I
So
mean,
we
it's
have
just as she was saying. Sorry, go for it.
Mona, Mona, and then we'll come back to Stacy.
No, I was just going to mirror what you were saying, that we wait for the participants, right? I mean, at the end of the day, their feedback is what drives us forward. So if if they enjoyed it, if they were able to kind of learn something, then we know that the partners are delivering.
Okay. Stacy?
I would completely agree with that. I think we have really been encouraged or challenged by our leadership teams to look at that organisational impact. So one of the things that we have done, we've worked with an impact measurement organisation actually on the EY Edge Leadership Development Programme. And we went right back to the beginning to think about what are the objectives and what change do we want to see as a result. And we measured a number of metrics across client interactions and feedback, revenue generation, and opportunities identified. So really went into quite a lot of granular data, both qualitative and quantitative. And actually, it's a huge time investment and it can be quite expensive. It's not something you would do on every single program, but it's given us a really powerful story and enabled us to identify where that learning has had real life impact in the organization or indeed for our clients.
And have you had to shift how you did that because the world is now more digitally focused, or is it more or less the same approach that you can take regardless of face-to-face versus online?
So I think the methodology is ultimately the same. So the kind of collection of data, the focus groups, the interviews, the surveys that you would do to gather the qualitative data. But I guess the nature of the questions we're asking has evolved as we've moved into this kind of digital world.
Okay. Okay. So we've got less than 30 seconds. I just want to say thank you to our panelists, Sonia, Stacy, Anna, and Mona. I really appreciate your time and that you've made taken an hour or so to come and talk to us. It's been very, very enlightening and helpful, and I hope that our audience out there in virtual world have found it as helpful as I have. So thank you all, and really appreciate your expertise and input.